Hey everyone, culture editor Bianca Gregg here to give you guys an exclusive interview with London Brown, actor and comedian and star on Power Book 3 Raising Kanan. Today he gives me exclusive tea on season 2 of Power Book 3. We also discuss rappers and RICO cases, along with him giving some flowers to his co-star Joey Badass for his recent album release. Hey. So let's start with talking about, of course, season 2 of Raising Kanan.
Yes.
Um, from the trailer, it looks like there's going to be a lot of focus on your portion of the Thomas family. The jukebox mother is making a return and she's being played by Latoya Luckett. Um, and so I wanted to know, how much of a focal point will that portion of the Thomas family be in season 2?
Excuse me. Well, thanks for having me. That's the first thing. But yeah, I think as far as the that aspect of it, I think pretty much what people can expect, with the season two is just the writers going further into the details of these characters, more the foundational things of them. Now that people are familiar with just us as and these characters, now the audience gets to follow along to see how we came to be these characters that they became familiar with in season one. So that would mean Jukebox and why she is the way she is, or why Marvin and Jukebox have this strange, distant kind of relationship, kind of a thing going on, and we kind of find out some of those reasons through season two. So they just it's just pretty much being able to peel back a couple more layers of these characters.
So are we going to see Marvin begin to handle Jukebox Truth a little better?
Yes, I think so. I think more than dealing with her truth a little better is really him coming to terms with himself. And through that, I think it affects other people's relationships. But Marvin got to figure out, Marvin's trying to get to the bottom of why he is the way he is, and what's causing that. Because if Marvin was, I think, a little more at peace with himself, then he would have more peaceful relationships with everyone else. So it's again, these characters, we're just peeling back and kind of getting to a little more of the core of them, of why they are who they are.
Will we be seeing a lot more bodies dropping this season?
There are some bodies dropping, but I really don't know how many, because all I know, first of all, we shoot out of order. So because we shoot out of sequence, and I'm not on set with everybody else's storylines, I know, Marvin got. I'll put it this way: Marvin does not tolerate the disrespect to his family. I can speak on Marvin's behalf, but I don't know how all the other characters lay out, how their conflicts are, because that's one thing they did kind of do with this season for Marvin. It kind of Marvin really does kind of have like his own specific storyline. I think this season that people are going to may find interesting, or as opposed to the first season, we was all kind of a family unit doing a lot of riff raff. But this second season, I think Marvin, he had to get some things sorted out. So that'll be interesting to see. But Marvin, to put it calmly, Marvin doesn't take any disrespect, and people will feel his energy for even trying to disrespect.
If you could describe season 2 in one word, how would you describe it?
Ooh, I'm gonna say, I think I probably, I mean, this is kind of a cliche word, but I'm gonna still go with, maybe I want to say dramatic. I think I'm gonna go with dramatic. Pretty dramatic, I think. I think between, like I said, the different storylines, I just know, at least for Marvin stuff, it's going to be some things that's going to catch the audience off guard, even with just how Marvin is interpreting life and how he responds to different things. How, people are going to be like, yo, that's pretty dramatic. That would be my first choice. And then if not, then I would probably encapsulate it all with, it's going to be pretty exciting.
So, considering you're from LA, is there any special preparation you had to do to play a character like Marvin, who was born and raised in South Jamaica?
Man, yeah, it was just a lot of studying the dialect. So, I was I'm in LA right now, but at the time I was living in Harlem, but we spent a lot of time back and forth shooting in Queens. But I listened to a lot of Nas. Now I remember I sat down with a dialect coach just to work out the phonetics of the words and different things like that. But it really was just me being around the environment. I was always in the streets. I walked, to the gym every day. I spent time in the communities and talking to the corner boards and different things like that. So for me, it was just being in the streets. That was my real preparation.
So it appears in your off time from shooting Raising Canaan, you are doing a lot of work in comedy clubs. Are you currently on tour, or are you just kind of popping in and doing shows?
Right now, what I've been doing is I've been working the LA circuit. I do a couple road gigs as well. But right now I've been really hitting the club circuit heavy, just to get back in a nice rhythm and a nice groove, because shooting took up so much of my time and focus that it was hard to really, plus it's coming out of the pandemic, that shut all the clubs down for a year. Then plus shooting this, and this project is not like, Marvin's not like the comic relief. So it took emotionally, I was just at a different place with Marvin. Marvin's a lot more serious and darker with some heavier stuff. So when I got back to LA, it was important for me to jump right back into my element and get my rhythm back, so that this time going back to New York, I'll be nice and ready for the clubs, because I've been in the trenches and really fleshing out material and stuff like that. So I try to keep that going.
So you are quietly transitioning from comedian and actor to an advice guru with your white tea talks. What made you decide to start this Instagram series?
Because what I was doing was I was doing a lot of I was doing these breakdowns, as I call them, on my lives and on my stories. And then what I realized was that I'm giving away a lot of content. And everyone always tell me, say, yo, man, you got to do something on social media. And I'm not a guy into sketches necessarily. I mean, I do them to help my friends out or something, but I'm not really into setting up the whole production, because to be honest with you, and this is no disrespect, but for me to really be setting up doing sketches almost kind of works backwards, in the sense that ultimately I know that a lot of my friends who are doing sketches want to be actors, or they want to do that. So since I'm already doing the acting thing, it just doesn't seem to work for what my vibe is. So the thing that seemed to be the most a part of my proclivity would be these white tea talks. And the white tea talks are simply just my point of view on usually relationship stuff, but just life stuff that I figured out, and through studying and research and talking to people and going through some of the stuff, I've seen people go through it. And also, like I say, grounded in some psychology stuff, I realized that I'm just into not what people do, but why people do what it is they do. Because I feel the reason these breakdowns is so that I give these breakdowns in hopes that by understanding why people are the way they are, it would help us ultimately to be able to function together. We don't have to like each other, but I think it does help to understand people. That way it changes. Like when I think about, it's just like, it's like the classic story of the guy that's a thug in school and everybody feels like he's just interrupted, or the kid in school that's just interrupting and causing problems because he just wants to be a bad kid. When we go into the the research of that, we understand like, oh man, he's not just a bad kid. His parents got divorced, or he just lost his father, so he's hurting, and so he wants attention. He's not just trying to be a bad kid. This kid, we know that children don't. We know that children don't necessarily be communicating their problems, but they'll act out their problems. So, but if we never take time to really understand the reasons why, it's easy to dismiss people. It's the same thing with Marvin. People can be so quick to dismiss Marvin, just say, oh, Marvin is just, he's always fussing and at odds with Rock. But hold on, there's some brother-sister power dynamics, no pun intended, that they have. Marvin feels like he's the older brother, but his younger sister's running it. But at the same time, he got to submit to that because he's like, yo, when I was in control, I didn't handle it right, so you took over. So, but if people don't understand that, we'll easily dismiss people. And I try not to be dismissive like that because I know that, again, as people, we have layers to us. So I really try to help people understand each other so that we can better get along. That's all.
So I wanted your opinion on something. I'm sure you've heard about Young Thug and Gunna being arrested for RICO charges. Do you think that it's fair that the courts bring in rap lyrics as evidence against these artists? Or do you think the artists need to step away from the streets once they hit it big in entertainment?
I kind of feel perhaps in general, as artists, but especially the rappers, I'm like, because I understand a lot of these rappers not really living these lifestyles that they portray on these records. But I know that stuff sell records. But understanding how Black men are targeted as best we can, we got to also not help them, find stuff or plant stuff or set the situations up. And that's the only thing that makes it frustrating. I'm like, yo, you already know, almost probably more than any other profession. I'm like, yo, they looking, which is wild, because what's funny is that it's like a whole big setup, which is they are definitely encouraging the artists to make these songs. Well, London, how are they encouraging these artists to make these songs? Because those are the records that they push the most. So it's like on one end, it's the setup. It's like, here, take this snack and you wrap your heart out. We're gonna pay you to do this because they know they're gonna make the money back when they incarcerate them and everything else. So it's like a forever revolving situation where it's like they set them up with the money. Here's the money. You can rap about whatever you want to rap about. We're gonna push these records. Then on the back end, incriminate them for the same thing that they set them up for. So, not to be verbose about this, but to your question, my angle to this is, I wish that the artists wouldn't help with their own, with their own convictions or evictions or convictions. And it's like, yo, man, don't, some of this stuff at some point, I'm not saying everybody got to go clean Will Smith, but cats got to read. They got to get out the hood some more. They got to get some exposure, live a little life. Because at some point, like I remember Jay-Z had a line said, I don't be in the project hallways talking about how I be in a project all day. Like at some point, music got to go somewhere else. But also that takes living, that takes change of environment. You know what I mean? So I would hope that they would not incriminate themselves through these lyrics, man, because it's a sad trap.
Are there any new albums that you're currently listening to?
Yes, I believe Joey Badass got an album. Shout out to my co-star, Plays Unique. I think the album's called 2000.
Yes.
I'm listening to that album. One record in particular, one with Chris Brown, is a nice, I think it's Welcome Back, I think it's called. I really like that album. That song in particular, but I like that album. And let me see, who else am I listening to these days? I'm always listening to comedy albums, stuff like that. But right now, like that's probably one of those songs. And my boy, my boy, Johnny Gilmore, he's working on some stuff. He's about to be released, and I try to support my friends. I'm listening to my boy Johnny Gilmore's one of his singles. But right now, that's kind of been the stuff that's in rotation. You know, I'm always listening to some jazz records and stuff like that. Shout out to Robert Glasper. I keep Robert Glasper on rotation. That's my guy right there, my buddy. But yeah, Robert Glasper, Joey Badass, my boy Johnny Gilmore. I have another friend, Lauren Oden. Listen to his smooth R&B, neo soul vibe stuff. So there's a couple records.
So London, I want to thank you for doing this interview with the Baldwin. I so appreciate it. This is your second one with us, and I hope there's going to be many, many more after this.
Yes. Thank you so kindly. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Culture editor Bianca Gregg signing out at the Baldwin.